Next up, let's talk about media. When it comes to media, we have three different types. We have video, audio, and images. I have a folder over here that contains all the media types that we are going to be discussing. One thing I noticed over here inside of my project is that the assets folder contains the images folder, but it doesn't contain a folder for the other types. So I'm going to go and create those now. So I'm going to come in here and create a folder for audio. And I'm also going to come in here and create another folder, and I'm going to call it vid, short for video. And this is the structure that I want for my website. I always want my web pages to be on the outside. So about, contact, index, those are all on the outside, as well as an assets folder. And inside the assets folder, I have a folder for every single type of thing that is used inside of my website. This makes it very easy to manage and find things that I'm looking for. So if I know that I need to look for an image, I know exactly where to go. So let's go take a look at that folder. Here are the 4 media files that I have. I'm going to copy them and bring them over. Let's go to File Explorer for this. I'm going to bring them into my assets folder and I'm going to paste them in. And they are automatically showing up in my file tree, which is great. If they didn't show up for whatever reason, you can always right click inside of Phoenix Code and select refresh file tree, and then they should appear. Now that I have this, I'm going to drag and drop these files into their appropriate folders. Looks like I'm going to have to do this in File Explorer. So in File Explorer, what I can do is I can drag and drop these into their appropriate folders. So the MP4 is a video that goes into the vid folder. The MP3 is an audio file that's going to go into the audio folder. And these 2 images over here, these 2 JPEGs are images and they will go into the images folder. Back in Phoenix Code, let's refresh our file tree one more time just to make sure all those changes were updated inside of our file tree in Phoenix Code. And let's open up the audio folder and we will see we have an MP3. Let's open up the vid folder. We have a video. And let's open up the images folder and we should see 2 images. Let's start this off. We'll create our HR, our horizontal rule, and we'll create our H2 and we'll put in the word media inside of that H2. And we can start talking about images. Here's the image tag, self-closing. And in order to indicate which image we are talking about, we are going to call the source attribute. Inside there, we're going to navigate from index into the assets folder, then into the images folder and call our image. As you can see, that image is huge. So one thing that we can do to fix this is we can add in an attribute called width and we can size it down to, let's say, 300 pixels. I'm going to collapse this and move this over so that we can see it better. So this will work in a pinch where I have a large image and I need to scale it down. It's not optimal because this image is pretty large. If we take a look at that image, we can see that it's about 1700 pixels wide and the size is 553 kilobytes. The better way to go about this is to resize the image to the largest size that it's going to appear as and use that instead. So I have another copy of this image over here that is actually 300 pixels wide. It won't require the width attribute and it saves a lot of space on the server. In this case, this image is 143 kilobytes. So that means that it's going to take up less space on the server and it's also going to be less data that needs to go from the server to the client when we deploy our site. So let's take a look at that. So here's the image tag again. Here's the source attribute. And inside of here, I'm going to go into assets. Then I'm going to go into the images folder. And then I'm going to call Black Widow small JPEG and close that up. And let's create a break tag in between these 2. And as you can see, there's no huge difference between these 2 images. They both work, except that the top one, being that it's so large, is taking up more space and it's requiring more data to be sent from the server to the client. And that could potentially affect the speed of the web page. Just by using the width attribute, this image did scale proportionately. You could also use height. Height is another sizing attribute. I can set that to the height of 300 pixels, and that also keeps the aspect ratio of the image. One thing that I caution against is using both, especially if you're not familiar with what the aspect ratio of your image is. So here's an example of that where I have the width set to 300 on this rectangular poster, and I'm also going to use the height height, and I'm going to set this also to 300. Now I've forced this poster to go from a rectangular shape to a square. So when it comes to resizing your poster, you only need one. You could either use width or you could use height. Again, I caution against using both. So in between these two, right above this, I'm going to create a break tag. The audio tag does have a closing, and the reason for that was when it was introduced, there were browsers that could accept certain file formats and some browsers that couldn't accept those file formats but could accept others. So for example, you could have a browser that accepted WAV but another browser couldn't. There was also OGG format that was pretty popular for a time. Today, that's not that big of an issue. Most of the working browsers all accept MP3s and WAVs. So in order to overcome that, back in the day, what you would do is you would list out a whole bunch of sources where you have different formats of the same audio file, and then the browser would go in and pick the one that it could play. Again, today we don't have to deal with that much. So for now, we could just use the audio tag, and from here we could add in the source attribute similar to what we did with the image. And in here, we're going to go from the index file over to assets, then the audio folder, and then call in our MP3. Now, this doesn't give us any visual because it's an MP3. It doesn't have any visual component by default. If I want to have a video player, what I can do is I can add in an attribute of controls. Now this attribute over here, shorthand for controls equals controls. So you can write it that long way if you choose to, or just know that if you just write the word controls inside the opening tag over here, it'll work the same way. And this is what it gives us. It gives us a media player where we have a play button. We have a timer, we have a slider, and we have volume controls, as well as a couple of options over here like playback speed. And lastly, we have the video tag. The video tag and the audio tag were introduced around the same time. So over here, we can start off with the video tag. Again, we are calling the source attribute, and this time we're going to go into the video folder and call in our MP4. And again, this video is pretty large, so we could use the width attribute that we saw inside of the image in order to resize it. And just like we saw inside the audio tag, we could also use the controls attribute in order to get some control over the video. We have a play button, we have volume controls, we have a slider, as well as these other options over here like playback speed and picture-in-picture. Now that we have all of our media down, let me just format this, select it all, cut it, and bring it to the bottom of our page. Next up, I want to talk about iFrames. So let's create a section for it. Start off with our HR, follow it up with an H2, and we will write in the word iFrames over here. An iframe allows you to embed another web page onto your current web page. So just to play around with this, I'm going to create an iframe over here. In this case, I'm just going to call in the about page. And as you can see, I have a little window over here inside of my home page that is showing the content of the about page. So that's how iframes work. We can see this using a couple of websites that allow us to embed stuff from that website over to our website. So let's go take a look at a couple of examples, starting with YouTube. So here I am in YouTube. Here I have the Black Widow trailer. And if I want to embed this YouTube video onto my website, I can come over here to share, select embed, and I will get an iframe over here. This iframe code, I could select copy and then bring it over and paste it into my webpage. And now I have the YouTube video displayed directly on my webpage. I have controls over here for width and height that allow me to change the size. So I could set the width to 300 and I could set the height to something like 200, for example. The last example that I'm going to show over here is Google Maps. So let's go take a look at Google Maps, and over here I've looked up City College. If I want to embed this map onto my webpage, I can do so by, again, clicking share, going to embed a map, and there's the iframe. Just simply copy and paste that into my webpage, and now I have a fully working Google map on my website. We could change the size over here using width and height. And now that I have a couple of iframes on my page, let me just format this, select it all, and bring it to the bottom of my page. So at this point, starting from the top of my page, I have a section for text, I have a section for components, I have a section for containers, media, and iframes, embedding from YouTube, SoundCloud, and Google Maps, as well as our own website.